Right, all good, thank you. All right. Welcome everybody to this Risk and Assurance Committee meeting. Marty, would you like to open with the Karakia, please?
Mea tuatahi te nau mai hara mai koutou I tēnei te ruma anō o Horunui o Rangi me tīmata I te karakia mo tātou mai te pai maunga raro ki te tai mai te awa tonga te awa raki tēnei te hapore awhiai te taratahi whano hara mai te toki haumi e hui e te pai.
Thank you, Marty. Welcome everybody. Welcome to councillors. This normal rules that I apply is you're very welcome to participate in the meeting. Unfortunately, the only thing you can't do at this stage is vote on any items, but thank you for your attendance. We've got no apologies. Full house. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest that need to be declared? None noted. Public forum. Right, first item 5.1, page 6. Minutes of the 22nd of May. Do I have a mover to take them as read? Are there any corrections? Would we have a mover? Councillor Dales seconded. Deputy Mayor Steve. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. First report 6.1, page 12. In your report. Yes. Oh, thank you. Oh, there was a hazard. Hey. Sorry?
We need a near miss report.
We do, yeah. Near miss.
But you know what it is? I can't see when I'm wearing my glasses because they're reading glasses.
There you go.
Did you break your finger? Can I have a look? Which finger was it?
Right, okay, right. Annual report.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, update on the annual report. I take it that the report is read. However, since the writing of the report, Audit New Zealand have come back with a revised schedule of their final audit. And the report proposes the audit begins for 3 weeks on the 23rd of September. They have now come back with a recommendation to start on the 30th of September, which will be effectively the 1st of October. So that pushes everything out by 1 week, and it would mean that the draft audit opinion would be the 25th of October, and we would still go for adoption of the annual report on the 30th of October. So that makes it quite a tight time frame, but appreciate that audit have got resourcing issues. We need to get the audit complete and we need to get the annual report complete so we can move on to other things like the annual plan. So that's really where we're at. We have developed we're developing work plans. We are also have committed with Audit New Zealand to work more closely with them on the audit and to make sure that issues or changes are raised much earlier and that we have time to do any last minute amendments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
When would we see a draft of that at some point? Do you know roughly when that might be?
To audit on the 23rd of September, would we be happy to share it at that point? So that would roughly be a month before it came to council for consideration?
Yep, we could have a briefing meeting over the annual report results pre-audit, or when they've gone to audit, and just go through the document and the results.
Yeah, would just be better if it was 2 or 3 weeks before we.
For sure.
Okay. When we give the document to audit, pre-audit, we'll organise a briefing for council at the same time and include risk and assurance
I just had a question around the resident survey, and if management's given any thought to an alternative option that we could be looking to plug in the gap that we have by not doing the survey.
Great question.
That will still result in a qualified audit opinion for the current year. But in terms of the LTP, we've developed a new framework and we've already started working with a company who existing company who's done the survey and may look further afield. So it's definitely something we're going to start again. We're going to take the word annual out of the survey, but certainly we will recommence that in the first year of the LTP.
I suggest taking
Yeah.
it to the council. Yeah.
And also some other measures that might measure user experience. It's not necessarily just the residents. There's other metrics that we might
Plug it in.
So, Mr. Chair, my question will always be, is the feedback we're already receiving through alternate mechanisms such as service requests, complaints, not itself good evidence of customer feedback and customer satisfaction or otherwise? And is there not data which informs us and could be consolidated and in a report on customer satisfaction?
Can I just help there? I think the issue is, as Karen has already talked about, that we've actually got specific measures in our existing LTP for 30th of June 24. So we've got to measure against those. So we can't actually have any alternatives, which is a real shame. You might actually, over a period of time, you might develop some better ones. You can't actually use those. So what has been done through the long-term plan, you've actually put in a generic survey, so you can actually describe that, which then would actually allow you to
address that. Then we've been doing the LTP for 18 months.
No, you've done it for this.
Done for this one.
The one you're working on, but not the one that was adopted 3 years ago.
You have to report in the annual report on the current LTP as at that date.
So our review disbarred us from reviewing those.
We to take it out, we would have had to have done an LTP amendment and consulted on taking it out, which seemed a little bit silly. So we just fixed it for the LTP that will come to consideration in September, rather than do an amendment to the old LTP, knowing we were going to change it anyway. But it is still a survey. Sorry, it is still a survey that is proposed in the plan. And the reason for that is there are some things that are difficult to get feedback on that other than via a survey. So we still do have a survey in the performance framework. It's just not annual.
And it has to be something that is sent out through the mail, or it can be online, or it could be a Facebook poll. Any of those things can count towards it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Generally, for the resident survey, you use a company that specialises in doing doing those surveys, and you use their advice on how best to reach the community.
And it's different than the company that was getting such low results in the past.
And I think the low results is widespread. It's not just us. I think people are just not responding to that kind of type of survey. And one of the things we need to look at is how can we increase the response? What does it mean for the community? What's in it for them? So to change the approach a little bit.
Yeah.
Also impacted by the amount of engagement we had done during that year. So we'd been out with the rating review. We're currently out with a representation review. We've been out with a bylaw change, the speed management review, revenue and financing policy. So, the plan, there'd been a number of engagements with the community, and there was there's a diminishing response that we get from.
So we've also had, and I don't know which ones would fit or not, but they are notable. We've had public engagements over Kiwi Rail crossings that was well attended. The feedback was strong, and the changes that were made to reflect the feedback are clear. And we just had a briefing on that. the public meeting on the medical situation within Carterton, not council still facilitated that happening, and that feedback was strong, that attendance was strong. So I'm not quite sure whether those actually fit in or can be utilised, but it just highlighted the fact that there are a number of engagements we're running, the ones outlined by the chief, plus those which are all information and give us an indication.
Yeah, and I think because of the requirements of the LTP, you have to have very measurable performance measures. So, and they have to be audited and approved by audit. So it's quite mandatory and regulatory set of measures, plus everything else we do. So the resident survey forms part of the obviously the LTP, which is regulatory component.
Sorry, just one follow on. I remember the initial discussion we had was $25,000 for the survey wasn't worth it. Will it still be around that cost, but we'll just do it less frequently? Is that sort of the plan going ahead? The
plan is it will probably cost around the same amount, but it needs to be effective.
Yeah.
And we need to understand what we are getting for that money. And if anyone else can provide an alternative view or more progressive. So we can't just assume by doing the same, we'll get the same.
Yeah.
So that's not part of the plan.
Yep. But it's frequent.
Yeah.
Councillor Dale.
Yeah, just around the valuation of the manuka. The question is, why does local government required to value crop, forestry or private, doesn't value it for rating purposes? I mean, isn't that the anomaly? We're trying to get recompense for commercial woodlots, and yet here council's required to value its own commercial woodlot. Why is that?
I think it's a great question for the chair.
Okay. Actually, the issue, manuka, technically should go on the rating database as an improvement, because you're taking the pollen from the manuka, you're not harvesting the manuka. So in theory, it should go on the rating valuation. I think the issue for this council is that the manuka value is actually relatively small, and that's the issue that we're having as a council, as it's a low value, and the cost to actually get it valued for the value of the crop seems disproportionate in terms of value, right? And the issue is we can't sell it. It's not, we don't depreciate it, right? It's actually serving no purpose. We don't intend to sell it, right? So what is the value in actually having it? The requirement is, because it comes under a standing crop, okay, right? We've actually got to get it valued in terms of the accounting standard. That's the issue. What we're saying is it's immaterial and we don't think it's of value. And I think that's what we actually need to resolve in the resolution that this committee recommends to council, that it don't revalue it for the following reasons. And I think that's, it's a pain in the butt.
I understand that. But if council chose, instead of manuka, to plant a pine forest and harvest the carbon credits, why would council be required to value that and note it, whereas a private citizen, it's not valued as an improvement?
And I think this is the challenge now for, and it's actually probably beyond my pay station, in terms of the valuer general rules about how properties are valued. Traditionally, pine forests have actually been put in there to be cropped. So the crop is the pine trees. However, the world is changing, and there are pine forests now that are being not harvested for a variety of reasons, including land stability and also carbon credits. So if that's the case, those the trees then should be valued
Improvement.
as an improvement on the rating database. But that doesn't happen yet.
Perhaps, can I clarify? So under the Rating Valuation Act, you're questioning why would some crops, vineyards, berries, berry trees, etc., fruit trees be considered an improvement and yet a pine forest not? And you're absolutely right. The legislation does articulate that vineyards and fruit trees and berry trees are an improvement and will be included in the capital value of land. But unfortunately, that legislation doesn't extend to manuka or pine plantation forests, which are planted for a productive purpose and will be harvested, but aren't valued. And that's a real anomaly within the Rating Valuation Act.
Don't quote me, because it could be wrong, but I think you'll find that a lot of that goes back to a time when the major owner of forestry was the government. And like a lot of things, the government exempted itself from any fiscal liabilities because the government can do that.
Yes.
Of course, after the TNI agreement, and then that situation in forestry changed, but legislation takes a while to catch up.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
Just for clarification for me, the manuka crop we're talking about is not the one down at Dalefield, is it?
No, it's behind the Kaipatanga.
Yeah, that's right. Because the one at Dalefield, we can't even harvest the pollen, can we?
Correct.
I've got a couple. One is, have you actually seen the audit engagement letter yet?
Yes.
Okay. All right. There are some councils that haven't. All right. The other one too is in 4.5, you're talking about a review of a third party of the financials in the report.
Oh, sorry. I think we're talking about a peer review of the annual report before it goes to audit.
Yep. So
we will use a consultant. So we'll probably use Bronda Smith to review.
Right. Okay. Cool.
We just need
not
quality
reviewing a third party.
No. I understand. But yeah, I just want to know that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That to me is actually good.
Absolutely.
All right. That to me is actually recommended, and actually sometimes they pick up some minor issues that things. And that also one of the issues that audit have is what's your quality assurance process? And go, well, look, here it is, right? Because unfortunately, and again, yes, I'm on record on this one. Audit New Zealand require a full set of financial statements before they begin the audit. Other external audit providers only require a trial balance, and they do their own analytical review. So it's the whole audit approach is very different. Right? Audit New Zealand. Well, say no more, Mr. Chief Executive.
Save an audit report.
I'll save that for a later date. All right. Okay, thank you. So if we go to page, no further discussion, we go to page 15. We have a recommendation where that we receive the report. We note the timeline. I think we need to note the amended timeline.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question around the paragraph on risk.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And just wanted to, I guess, have a quick conversation around the risks associated with this report and just how consequence or how fundamental some of those risks are. We've got here the risks that staff do not meet the timelines proposed, could lead to a delay in the adoption and so forth. And I just wanted some assurance alongside the risk that we've got that covered.
Absolutely. So there's two main risks with the annual report. One is something we control, and that is that our staff are unable to deliver the document and the appropriate supporting documentation to audit and the timeline that audit needed. And we're managing that risk with some external resource because of the pressure on staff from the delayed adoption or the delayed LTP. So we do have a risk internally, and we're mitigating that risk via external consultants. It also helps that potentially some of the ELT and myself are able to step in and support the finance team to get this across the line. The second risk is external, which is Audit New Zealand, once we deliver on time, are then unable to deliver their part of that piece. And Karen's proposed to manage that risk with weekly meetings with audit and ensuring that any requests for queries or changes are managed on a documented basis, not verbal. So we've had some challenge in the past where the on-site staff have made verbal requests and they, in hindsight, have been incorrect, and we've changed things at their request and then had to go back and undo that change. So Karen's going to manage the audit time frame with audit very closely. I think that's probably the bigger of the two risks. There's a potential cost implication for augmenting our internal finance staff whilst they're under pressure from doing the LTP, and we will bring that up to council probably at the next September meeting to identify the risk around or the cost around doing that. I think we've managed our internal risks okay. The one that worries me more is audit. They have had a history of over-promising and under-delivering.
That's precisely the point I wanted to put on the public table. They've already said that we're a week behind on this process that came to the agenda, not because of us, but because audit are already slipping. And what their fees go up last year, 40%. So audit are charging us an extraordinary amount of money for modest service. And I just want to make sure everybody's aware that this is a regulatory process we must follow, but we are at risk of that under delivery or slow delivery that costs us a lot of money and a lot of extra aggravation. It's you know, and we're paying a lot of money for the privilege of being mucked around.
Disappointed. Yes.
Yeah.
You are absolutely correct. We're paying a lot of money for the privilege of potentially being disappointed. The one thing we can do is make sure that we give audit the best annual report possible. And that's why we're going to get it peer reviewed, because if we can minimise their queries and questions and give them, you know, the most polished document, hopefully it'll reduce the amount of time they have to spend going through it. But yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you.
I got Councillor Grace and then Mark.
Mine was the same issue that Dale's just raised, where they've said that they would prefer to have a month extension. That's a red flag for me, that they've already flagged that with us, that they'd like a month. They're giving us the week. I feel like would be prudent to prepare ourselves for a December 11th meeting.
You are correct. So audit would prefer to delay the whole thing until December. The problem for the organisation is that means that audit won't be out of our business until next year. It also means that we're unable to move back into BAU. It means I'm unable to do anything with the software that we're using for our financial reporting. So we can't pull it apart, we can't upgrade it, we can't fix it, we can't change any of that. So we've discussed the ability for implementing an event centre activity. I can't do any of that if I have to hold my breath while audit go through the financials. So I need them to finish their work, to give us breathing space, so that we can then go through and start managing BAU and making improvements to our financial system, to our processes, and give our finance team a rest before we start with the plan. I really don't want audit to delay. I would really like them to finish on time.
Can I just add something to that from being an ex-bean counter, right? The issue too is that you can't close off your general ledger until you've actually got the audit done. That makes then also producing very good financials on an interim basis to council more of a challenge, because you haven't actually finished last year and you're still trying to then do transactions in a new year, and you don't actually have the right opening balances because they continue to change. So it's not a pretty sight from an internal perspective.
Well, if it looks like we're being compromised to that level, we have to consider ombudsman or minister, because we can't do our job if we're regulatory required to be at the mercy of an agency that can't deliver.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marty had a sorry.
Yeah, Chief Executive has answered my question. I mean, because he said he'd be disappointed if there were delays. I think he's just. My feeling was that it was more than just being disappointed, and you've gone through the issues there. So.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Jeff, I just had a question around that, and I'm glad Dale's raised it. Just in 2022, we didn't adopt our annual plan till December. Marsden annual report, sorry. South Wairarapa and Marsden District Council didn't adopt theirs until February and March the following year, but it was identified as a low risk for council. So is this extenuated, the circumstances around the delay in the annual report? It's more around the delays in the LTP are causing
That's right.
Yeah.
the on-flow of the risks and so forth to the team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aaron's absolutely right. Yes.
Just to add to that, audit have said that due to several councils delaying their LTP, we're not the only ones in the country, that is, and that they're having to either re-audit the LTP. That's put pressure on their resourcing and planning to do the annual reports. And so they initially said, you can adopt your annual report anytime up to the 31st of December, but that doesn't help because of all the other work things. In the previous 2 years ago, it was delayed because of COVID. And so the reason is different this time, but it's really their resourcing and planning and not having enough people on the ground to do all the work that's required. And also, we knew that on the 26th of June, they were trying to get Wellington across the line and Masterton and us. And we were the only ones that didn't audit the consultation document. So I think, there was a priority there.
Mr. Chair, and I think, thank you, Karen, because that's the rationaliser. We can throw our toys around the room as much as we like, Dale, but the reality is the reality, and Audit New Zealand are under the pump as well. And I think CE signalled that very early on that there was going to be an issue with Audit New Zealand's capacity and capability. And of course, it all comes back to our LTP, which is really what was put out. So I think we just managed forward. I think just for me, I'd absolutely compliment you, Karen, on the way in which you're managing things at this point under difficult circumstances. Thank you for that.
We may wish to consider what other options we have once we get through the long-term plan and the annual report.
Yes.
At this stage, we're locked in.
Yep.
So we'll do the best and support the finance team as best we can.
Okay. All right. So no further questions. So if we go to page 16, we've got 4 recommendations there. One is we receive the report. 2 is I suggest we change the wording in 2 to we note the proposed amended timeline. then can I make a suggestion here that we add that the committee agrees that a revaluation of the Manuka crop is not required for the 24 year due to the is it the council or the committee's view that this does not materially affect the financial statements. What we're saying is yes, technically we need to do it, but we're saying it's immaterial, right? And we consider materiality. And hopefully that might stop the
Challenge.
the further discussion with audit. Well, we can but try. Yeah. You're happy with that? And then the we say is that we endorse the proposal not to complete the resident survey. So Deputy Mayor Steve has moved that. Do I have a seconder?
This is all four.
All four? Yep. Thanks, Dale. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you. I'll try and leave gracefully.
I've actually
Watch that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. Did you make a note of that? And you'll be chastising the person who put their bag there late after the meeting, will you?
He can do the report.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. Take your report as read. Are there any key highlights or further information you want to bring to the committee's attention?
Tēnā koutou katoa. Yes, just a couple of things. You'll notice that the report covers quite a wide span of time. Unfortunately, in your last committee meeting, we didn't have time on the agenda to bring our regular report, but we have reported through the CE's report in the Ordinary Council some of those key issues that we've been experiencing. So, particularly sickness and the customer behaviour issues that we had been experiencing as well. The couple of things just to highlight. I'm really pleased to see, and I just wanted to note the work that Health, Safety and Wellbeing Advisor Jodie Dalziel had done in the SiteWise space. So we introduced SiteWise as a new pre-qual for contractors some time ago. And just to acknowledge, we've now got our contractors up to 90% of their competency. So, the vast majority of our contractors are now compliant. And I think the great thing that's been helpful in the system is it uses their current systems and processes and methods. So we haven't asked them to introduce new ways of doing things, but Jodie's worked really well with them to translate that into the SiteWise system. So that's been great. Secondly, you'll note we've reintroduced or recommenced our overspeed reporting. So we had changed our speeds reporting system. So we're just doing some work in that space at the moment. And lastly, it's emergency management. So there's a lot happening in the emergency space. Again, particularly even at the top end of NEMA and Remo and ourselves locally. So looking to bring more of that to the next committee meeting in terms of what we're doing and how we're managing those risks there. Otherwise, happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Jerry? Ladies.
I'll kick it off.
Thank you. Grace.
First question I had was with regards to the new training platform.
Yes.
I was wondering what the costs were of setting that up and where does that fall within budget lines?
So the initial setup cost was $2,500 to set up the administration. We will manage it internally in terms of staff that sit in the People and Wellbeing team will manage the ongoing admin of that site, but they are still there for support, any support we need around the system, which is great. And then locally, it's around $10.36 per person a month to do it. So it's really cost effective in terms of the scope of the training resource and facility that we've got for that amount. Yeah, it's really cost effective.
And it's all a desktop thing, it's not an app or?
So it is, just about out on an app. I'm not sure if that's come out just yet, but desktop at the moment, but they can get that on their phone. So it's modified for mobile. So in downtime, they've got 10 minutes, they might be able to whip in and do a wee little course or something. So the staff have grabbed onto it. So much so in the beginning, we sort of said, you don't have to complete all of this right today now, but it is very super user friendly, particularly for staff that aren't academics, not their thing. They don't want to sit there, particularly more operational staff, I would say, that are hands-on. Yeah, easy to interact with, easy to use. So yeah, they're enjoying it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Lou, thank you.
Question around staffing. So the 6 vacant positions, and then you look at them, some you've reorganised and you've managed to cut it down. Does this only happen when people leave a role, or does it happen every number of years you relook at the positions and see if it needs to be rejigged?
So we're doing it every time.
No, carry on.
So we do it as just a matter of course in terms of when people leave the position. We look at what's the functionality of the position. Do we need the position? Can we reassign? We're, as I said in the report, really acutely aware of costs, at the moment. So we've been very careful around that, and that's why we've really only replaced those roles at the minimum of what we think we need to do. Councils do regularly undergo a 17A review of services. So that's looking at, you might look at a whole bunch of service, not just function and roles. So you'll look at a service delivery and you'll review what the method is, how you're doing it, is it effective? So that's a very regular.
So when you say very regular, how often is that done?
Yearly.
Every 3 years, and we pick a part of the business. I think the last 17A review we did was on our contractor that we employed, GNC Diggers. So we went through the significant review of that. I believe we did a 17A review when we had Mahanga Roads contract come up for renewal or for extension as well. So we undertook a review at that point.
So given out of these 6 people that left and you've only had to hire 3 back on a part-time basis, do you think it would have been beneficial to look at this earlier, like a year ago, 6 months ago? Like, did we need these staff being there?
A couple of those roles ceased as a result of some of the decisions we've made. So in the sales space, for example, we've not needed that resource. So as we've come up, Jeff's been managing without an EA for a wee bit now. And that was a trial basis to see, what's the need.
And another one of the roles was in the water space. So with the 3 Waters Reform transition, we again changed that. So I think you're right. We do have a rotation of staff through quite, and we do this on a regular basis. So I don't think the mere fact that Jerry's included 6 in here would suggest this is the very first time we've done it. We've been doing this on an ongoing basis for ever since I've been here with every single role, and we have a reasonable number of staff that change every year.
So in the last, say 12 to 18 months, we've reorganised or restructured the Parks and Reserves team, the finance team.
And there was one other change that we did. We certainly added someone into the IT space.
Years ago.
And we're currently looking at the way we manage the shared staff in the roading space with South Wairarapa.
Just follow on from Lou's great question. With the 17A review, you mentioned 2 of those ones that you've done a deep dive in, they were both external. Do we do it internally as well with our own in-house staff? Not just when they come up with
The legislation requires all parts of council's business. I can't think off the top of my head one that we've done internally yet.
Yep.
The legislation is not just limited to external, it's internal as well.
Thank you.
Seeing as we're talking about that, is there an indication of what the personnel cost saving will be from that 3.5% drop in staffing levels?
I haven't done those figures. So that's 3.5%, because I think some of the conversations we've had is around reflective of the public service, 5% or 6%, and really just translated that figure for you as a head count, 3.5%. Yeah, so there will obviously be savings in the financial sense, but I can bring those figures back if that's helpful.
Thanks, Jerry.
Any further question?
I have several.
You have several? Wow, excellent.
Jerry, I just want to ask a question around the focus of activities, point 4, just in the wording.
Page 7.
just on the, where it says additionally, the delay in the adoption of the LTP. For me personally, I feel that there's connotations in that we have decided around the table that we haven't adopted the LTP, or we chose not to, and it's caused issues. I just feel that it'd be good to note that, for me, the wording should be additionally problems identified with the LTP through the auditing process, just for the community to understand that it's actually the auditors that have caused the delay. So I feel like the way it's written that we've caused the delay, and I don't think the governance have.
Or reflective of, notwithstanding the cause, it creates additional workloads for the team.
I just had a question at the leadership meeting that we had just the other day. There was some feedback from one of the sector leads about how some of their members did not like online training and they prefer to face-to-face. And I'm just wondering if there's been any staff feedback as to whether they prefer face-to-face training instead of the online that is actually mentioned in your report.
I think if I just sort of reflective of this learning and forgetting curve, which is quite academic in itself, but just more, it's not all horses for courses, I suppose. So some people love online, some don't like online. I think this was just, so we haven't stopped in-person training because we've got this. You know, this fills a place. The cost effectiveness and the ability to access this quickly and easily makes it worthwhile. So, but it doesn't replace sort of in-person. So we've still got people attending in the operational space. They're going to have to attend wheels, tracks, and whatever they do, you know, operationally. So we haven't replaced that with this. But there'll be some people who prefer in-person, some who like online.
Thank you. Oh, you finished? You got any more questions?
I do.
Okay, yeah. He's got a pen. Keep going. I haven't forgotten up for the grace.
Under 5.1, I just thought it'd be good to know which areas of council activities the injuries, incidents and reports of damage are occurring.
Sure, and the general incident.
Yeah, just to me, there's a lot more risk around someone if it's happening at the wastewater treatment plant or it's happening around machinery or something rather than it's happening in the library, if I can put it that way.
Yeah,
sure. If I may, do you want to, you would like that included in the report rather than just the general trends? I mean, I've got Jodie here if you're interested in that now as a general idea.
Just going forward, I think it'd be handy just to have where those are, just it might help highlight where to us around the table where there might be things occurring more and more.
I did bring for your note, because we just started reporting on the vehicle speed again. It's just around those incidents actually. And with the 7 near miss reports involving vehicles, 3 of those are actually other driver behaviours. So our teams, you know, at roundabouts, you know, being cut off by someone, or so they are reporting other driver behaviour that impacts on some of those sudden stops or that kind of thing as well. And also we had a couple of those were involving trailers. So we're starting, as we monitor those trends and pulling out what those are, we can identify those key points here.
And my last one is around the speed. And I just think it'd be good to have a little bit of additional information relating to which zone the speeding is occurring in, because to me there's quite a difference between 10 k's over the limit in a 100 k area or 10 k's over the limit in town.
We can do some of that analysis. I mean, anecdotally or in the general sense, it's those edges of town where we're decreasing from 100 to 70 or 70 to 50 is where we're clocking those speeds primarily, not through through the middle of town, but it's where the speeds change. But we can do, we could bring that. We've got that data. We can bring that to you.
Can I just interrupt? It would actually also be nice to know too how long that overspeed was for, right? So if you can do that, and I'll tell you why. I've got a GPS, right? And I was travelling on doing about 80 k through a windy road, and suddenly the GPS jumped to 136 kilometres. an hour. Well, I would have crashed the car at that, but it's logged as, it was just because it dropped the signal and thought and then jumped and thought you've moved that far in that short of distance, right? And that to me was an anomaly. And are we getting any of those just from a reliability? Probably not got nice flat area here and it's not hilly and that sort of thing, but yeah, maybe out in the hills. So that to me also would be useful, because what worries me is someone who's consistently driving, like at 15k over the limit for 15 minutes compared to 5 seconds. Yeah, a blip.
And we can, and that I've made in the notes that, some of these are generated by one journey,
Yes,
but the same driver pinned in it.
Yeah,
So we could bring that.
Yeah, so GPS pings every, I think 5 seconds it ignores, but above 5 seconds it counts.
Right.
So we'll.
That's
the other interesting point is Waka Kotahi have suggested point-to-point speed cameras.
Yeah.
So if you are travelling at 15 kilometres an hour over a long period of time, it's highly likely if you will end up with a point-to-point ticket and in the post.
Yeah. So, thank you. Right. Carry on. Thank you. No.
Thank you.
Mine was about the vehicle stuff as well. So one was, is there a rule around where you have to be measuring? I note that we're not measuring the first 10 Ks over the speed limit, and I'm wondering if that's a policy thing or.
So one of the reviews is really policy settings. We don't stipulate speeds in our policy. Some other councils do.
Mm-hmm.
We considered that, but wondered, if you start stipulating speeds, do people go up to that speed? So if you say, well, under 10 Ks is all right, and we'll ignore, well, then does everyone then start speeding to under 10 Ks?
Yeah.
So, we're certainly reviewing, and we'll use the Health, Safety and Wellbeing Committee to sort of tease some of that out. But ultimately around driver behaviour and being safe.
Yeah.
But I think there's certainly some room for higher speeds and what the consequences or the response from a employment or behavioural discipline setting might look like within that.
And because is there anything now, if we've got drivers who are continually going over the speed limit, and is there a process of restructure, that sort of thing?
There's not a formal process because it takes away the flexibility to apply a process, if you like. So, but certainly there is reports going to the managers very regularly, and that's where you'll see we have had some changes in behaviour. But beyond is we are thinking about including the policy some structural what's a verbal warning look like. Yeah.
Awesome. And it also says there were post-incident alcohol and drug tests. What were the results of those?
They're all negative. The policy states that whenever there's a vehicle incident where we are driving, so not another car hits us, but where we are driving, the driver is always drug tested. And they're all negative.
And breath tested.
And breath tested. And sometimes can be highly embarrassing for the staff member who
it's a minor ding.
There's a minor scratch, and they
9 o'clock
up to Marsden manager, and it's a formal process. But what we found was it's better to have a formal process that everybody has to do regardless, rather than leave it to managers' discretion, because it always creates tension. If I might note, speaking recently to a police officer, the 10 kilometre an hour speed limit used to be part of the traffic management that police would do. So, anything sort of below 10 kilometres an hour, they really wouldn't pull you over for, which was interestingly 10% of the open road speed limit, and that's now dropped to 7 kilometres an hour. So if you are more than 7 kilometres an hour over, particularly in an 80 kilometre an hour area, it's likely you might end up like me speaking with an officer.
Right, thank you for that advice.
Thanks.
Mine was not, it didn't cost me anything.
I would also thank you for your advice. Yes, all right, thank you for your clarification.
I was just
Enough
chatting.
said,
I was just chatting.
Right, any other questions, comments? I've got one. Thank you, Jerry, very much for the good reporting on your contractor audits, right? My only question is, I note you said you did 2 for the period.
Yeah.
What do you consider good practice in terms of the number that we should be doing? I thought they were really robust. Thank you for that. But yeah, because you say that contractors are our biggest risk.
Yes. So it's really, we'd like to be doing more, and I think we would aim to do probably half a dozen in between a period. Again, it's dependent on resourcing. We've been focusing on making sure we do 2 really good, robust audits to bring to you. And yeah, that's just really time constraint and resourcing to get those done.
Okay. All right. Any others, Lorraine?
I did have one more.
Sure.
Thank you.
5.6 staff policies. You were talking about policies that have been reviewed. I just wonder if there were any noteworthy changes within the remuneration, rewards, performance management policy.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that we've been debating, talking with the unions over the last few years, is the way we do our remuneration. So we use strategic pay data, which is, in simplistic terms, benchmarks us against other councils of similar comparison, and we use role by role. So our gardeners here, for example, are compared salary-wise with gardeners elsewhere. What the unions have come to us a lot around is applying a step remuneration process. So every year, unless there's something drastically wrong, you get the next step and the next step, and you progress that way. And we've resisted that, but where we've met is that to let staff know what does outstanding behaviour look like, what does competent, just, you come in, you do a good job, but that's, the end of don't do anything else over and above, you're not coming up with the innovative ideas, not putting in those extra hours or contributing more. The step-by-step process doesn't acknowledge that. And so for our staff, we've now got a clear matrix that defines what does outstanding behaviour look like, what does just highly performing, what does just competent. So we haven't changed any of the way we apply our salary increases, so we're still using the data. So we remain comparable with other councils. But what we have done is just stipulated what that behaviour looks like. And staff have really responded to that, and the unions like it as well, just as a way to make sure, that's what I need to do, I'm going to start performing, so that the objective is that it encourages great performance and people strive to achieve that performance.
Absolutely. I would encourage the council to continue that approach. I think the step-by-step unionised model is mediocrity across the board then.
It's challenging when we have shared services and our neighbours have a step-by-step model.
All right, thank you, Terry. No further questions, final bits. So we've got a recommendation on page 35. Do I have a move that we receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Dale, seconded. Thank you, Councillor Steve. All those in favour? Aye, thank you. Next.
Which councillor, Steve?
It's actually on the committee.
There are 2.
Oh, sorry. I refer to this Steve as Deputy Mayor Steve. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed. Right. Right. In terms of next item, page 36, the terms of reference for the Risk and Assurance Committee, patch following the council meeting. And my apologies, I was supposed to do a spreadsheet of what other councils were doing. And I've looked at that, and can I just highlight some actually in the Office of the Auditor General's attachment, there are some really good groups of suggestions, and the issue, I'm on page 41 of the agenda. There is basically on that far right column down the bottom, it talks about the work program of what a risk and assurance or audit and risk committee should be doing. And that, to me, then actually should be driving the terms of reference.
Yeah.
That, to me, those broad categories. And what I observe, right, is that there's various degrees of compliance with that around the country, right, in terms of the terms of reference.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, look, in light of the conversation we had pre this meeting, and some work that we really do need, I'm just wondering if rather than moving on this paper today, that we go back to the original intent, have a workshop so we can go through this stuff and work our way through to where we feel as a committee that we want to settle as a recommended TOR to then come to this committee for sign.
I don't disagree with that, Mayor On. What I would be suggest is maybe we just talk about some of the principles here to agree to have a workshop. And then that workshop, I wouldn't actually necessarily see that workshop actually then coming back to this committee, but I would actually then take it straight to council. He would be the appropriate way to do it. My only comment I would like to make is that in all the committee's terms of references that I have seen, is that this council is unique in terms of monitoring the chief executive's performance and undertaking. That, to me, is the outlier in terms of that. Now, bearing in mind, we did agree formally in May that the chief executive's performance appraisal should actually happen in August, but events of LTP and other things have actually overtaken that, and that still needs to be scheduled and agreed. And it's we need to talk to the chief executive about that. It's only fair that because it's actually, Jeff, you correct me if I'm wrong, to present what he has done for the year isn't a 5-minute job.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of time and resource, and we need to do that appropriately.
And acknowledge that, Mr. Chair, but I guess my concern is that we had these conversations.
Yep.
We've had this very same conversation a year ago around the question of whether or not it's appropriate for risk and assurance to be actually conducting the CEO's review. We've had this conversation about how other councils have restructured the CEO's performance committee, about utilising that option. We're at 2 years now, Mr. Chair, and we still haven't done it. And I'm getting a little bit concerned that we delay and delay. I don't believe the LTP has anything to do with how this committee structures its work, actually, and in particular in that space. So I'd like to see us expedite those conversations into a decision as soon as we possibly can. I think to continue to delay is not, we will do the CE's performance assessment based on his current contract and on current KPIs, and that's a given. But to be going forward for the next term, we need to be expediting swiftly. And I think so if we can move to a workshop, come up with some recommendations and include in that, not just the TOR for the risk and assurance, but also recommendations to whole of council around how that separate committee should be set, structured and operated, that would be hugely helpful. I'm very conscious that we're getting up to 1 year out from at the end of the triennium, and we need to make progress.
Councillor Dale.
Coming back to what you said before around the principles, I agree with both of what you've said. I have not sat on a council where the CE's employment process has been under the umbrella of risk and assurance.
Correct.
But it is in Carterton's case, and a decision made back whenever it was made that that's how it was. I guess coming back to principles, my question is, as a committee, do we want change from what we've got?
Yep.
Just because it's unique doesn't necessarily mean that. So I guess my question is, do we want change? And if so, why? And that then will give rise to how the process, I mean, I'm happy that we have that conversation now. I agree with you. Time ticks on, having another workshop and putting it together. If we have to, we have to, but we could, if we agree we want change and the principles behind that are solid, then we could have that conversation, couldn't we?
I just think the other information that we asked you about is pertinent to that conversation. And I think we could convene a workshop next week. Maybe, if people's diaries fit.
Well, my question is, do we want change? And what is the principle behind wanting change? And then we go from there.
Yeah, and maybe we actually have some discussion from the committee members and then potential councillors on that principle, because we're totally, that's a really good place to start. Thanks, Councillor Dale. Is it of the view of this committee that we need to change, right? Particularly around the one outlier.
Yes.
If we don't need to change it, well, then we get on and do the CE performance schedule that, right? And then I think that's a given. We did need to do that anyway. The other issue is we can continually refine our terms of reference and our work plan. And I don't disagree with having a workshop, but it's scheduling everyone's diary, right? But can I have some feedback from, maybe we go around the table, Marty, and then we'll just crisscross across the table if that's okay. Oh, sorry, sure. Yep. No, start with, sorry. Yep.
As to whether the Chief Executive's performance is part of the ambit of this committee or something else, I don't feel I can have an opinion on that.
Okay, thank you.
There's just because everybody else does it differently doesn't mean that we can't do it differently. I think the bigger question now is the timing of the discussion. If it's that urgent, then why not do it now? Why have a separate workshop? Why put it off a week? Have it now. We're here, and presumably have prepared for it because it's on the agenda. As to anything else in the terms of reference, that's the prerogative of the council.
Okay. Yeah. Deputy Mayor Steve.
I'm of the mind that I think the whole of council should be setting the KRAs for the CE, not just the risk assurance committee.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts going forward. As I don't know whether a separate committee needs to be set up or whether it's council.
That's
part of their process.
Thank you.
That we set the KRAs.
I think it would make sense to have it as a whole council decision. As the whole council employs the CEO, it makes more sense for us all to be part of that decision. With the terms of reference, the only thing that I pointed out when I was looking through it was it talks about having term limits for independent people as well as councillors, and I think that could be something that we include in our terms of reference going forward.
Yep.
Talked about the deep dives. I thought that sounds like something that we should definitely have a structured process going through these different issues. But yeah, I think we should crack on. Time goes past fast.
Okay. Mayor Ron, did you want to make any further comments?
No, I'm agreeing with all the comments that I've heard.
Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of change, we're talking principally about the review of the CE's performance.
And other potential changes like Councillor Grace has already referred to. Yep.
But specifically in terms of that, from my understanding of what the Risk and Assurance Committee does, reviewing the CE's performance doesn't seem to fit in there really.
It doesn't.
I would be inclined to think there should be a separate committee and possibly it should have representation or professional representation on it from outside the council. That would presumably provide a recommendation to the whole of council, but yeah, it would seem to me to have the whole of council reviewing the CE's performance would be a bit clumsy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, my experience, for example, in Porirua was a committee of 3 councillors and 1 external consultant to provide that level of of not professionalism, but oversight and to help guide. Just coming back to the point that Councillor Ayling made, regardless of whether it's a separate committee or risk and assurance, the full council is involved in the setting of the KRAs. It's kind of like a 360. That committee it discusses with the CE and gets the feedback from the CE, then includes the full council, so that the committee's role really is to just pull it all into shape and undertake the two parts of the process. The first is around performance, and then the CE reports to that, and the council makes any changes it wants to the KRA. And once that process is done, then you go through the remuneration part, which is done, through a whole level of strategic pay and medians and all this sort of thing. And then the committee makes a recommendation back to council on whether performance is met, any changes to KRAs, and resulting recommendation around remunerations. So it's kind of it's a fairly well defined. So whether it's under risk and assurance or whether it's a separate committee, the process is generally the same.
Yeah, so look, I'm really comfortable with what I'm hearing. What the summary I would take from that is clearly there is a view that the CE's performance should be separated out from risk and assurance. But if you're focusing on the TRR for risk and assurance, and quite happy to progress now if that's what the committee feels it wants to do. It's making sure we have that work plan. It's making sure that there is a stipulation that the risk and assurance will undertake a series of deep dives over a triennium, and that these things will be forecast so that the CE and the management are aware that those things are likely to happen. At this stage, from what I've observed, it seems that we've just really, other than BAU, done little, and that's not a hallmark of a quality risk and insurance committee function.
Yep. Can I just hear from the other councillors? Councillor Brian?
I'm probably of the opinion that that everybody should have all the councillors should be involved in the setting of all the TR, etc. At the end of the day, it does come back to council for the final sign off. If we do make up a smaller committee to do basically the basic stuff right at the start, I of the opinion along with Dale, an independent would be a good move, but the makeup of the rest of the committee should probably be voted on by the council.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think we can. Right? All we can do is make a recommendation to council. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
I also think whole of council as well. That also written here that the performance review see is probably not a risk and insurance thing, maybe. I sort of think whole of council should have the say on it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robin?
I liked how you explained it, Dale, with the setup of a separate committee. I think you nailed it when you said that the full council is actually responsible for the KRAs, and then back down to a smaller committee with an independent. Agree with you, Brian, that committee needs to be voted on at a council meeting, where experience is taken into account as well for that membership. And I would be comfortable with a separate committee, the premise that the full council also has signed off on the KRAs, and there is an independent person there.
Last but not least, Councillor Lee.
I agree with what Robin said. My only concern would be if the majority of councillors weren't on board with it being a smaller committee, I'd be concerned that they'd do the work and it would come back to council and it'll just keep being kicked around. So if the majority would rather the whole of council's involved with it, I'd probably feel more comfortable just getting it done like that. But my ideal situation would be a smaller committee. But whatever it is, just be good to get it done.
Yep. So what I'm hearing is that there is an appetite for a separate committee to be set up or to be investigated by full council, and that full council should actually do the performance assessment and setting the KRAs. Now, in terms of form and practice, what has happened before is that generally all the councillors have been present in previous years when they have been set. As far as this committee, it's just, I'm not an HR specialist, right? And I think having an HR specialist is actually important. I do know a little bit about HR, but I probably know enough to be very dangerous and probably sometimes unhelpful. But I also just note that the Local Government Act does actually require some specific requirements, and I have seen one or two councils get into slight trouble by not understanding the requirements of the Local Government Act. Right? I wouldn't say it was major, right? But there is some specific issues that, for example, you can't just automatically roll over the chief executive's performance for another 5 years, right? You know, it's technical stuff, and that's to me. So I think an appropriate HR person, again, right, that does come right, at a cost, but again, hopefully there's significant benefit in that. So all right. So I think that's where the direction we're heading. Is there anything else I share the mayor's concern or issues over the work plan? I think that I would actually rather focus, right, not on the terms of reference, but actually on a work plan that is negotiated with the chief executive and his resources. So it's actually a collaborative approach to say, this is what good practice looks like. So over the next 12 months, this is what we should be looking at in each of our meetings, which gives the chief executive up to 12 months, maybe only 3 to prepare. And then also that we can, as issues arise, we can say, well, look, we scheduled to do ABC next meeting, but this is another issue. Can we put that ABC out till the following meeting and bring something else forward? I think that's the better way to go in terms of actually developing a robust work plan. That's why I put in that suggested work plan from OAG. And I know the source of that. Right? It wasn't anything to do with me. I just can't take credit for that. But I think but where there is a robust work plan is where you actually get a better performing audit and risk and assurance committee.
Thank you. That's what I've been saying.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Right. So we then go to the recommendation, right? What we'd be recommending to council would be what?
Very good question.
Sorry?
Workshop.
I mean, I think we've actually had, right?
Yeah.
I think the issue is it's actually then that we're now passing it up the tree to full council, but we're making some recommendations. And what I have heard, if I can summarise, is that the committee recommends to council that the terms of reference for the audit, the risk and assurance committee, be amended to exclude the role of, now I've got to get my wording right here because what is the role? Sorry, I just don't back. Sorry, my apologies.
Council considers the implementation of a CE employment committee.
Yep.
And then council can decide what the makeup of that looks like.
Absolutely, totally. Yep.
Would be easier. She's trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
If your wording said that recommended that CE's performance assessment be separated out and be delegated to a separate committee, and then leave the council to have a conversation, and then we can have a paper up at council which says recommending what it looks like, and then council can discuss that and agree it as a whole. We don't need to be talking about what the committee looks like.
No, absolutely not. No.
Recommend it be separated out
So,
and put in.
Just to clarify, Are we talking about going forward or are we talking about?
Well, let's going forward. So the question then becomes, right? Let's get the principle going forward. Then once we've agreed that as a committee, right, I would actually be suggesting is the next thing is since we've got all of council here, because that might take some time to work through, then does this committee as part of the final hurrah, right, schedule a meeting to do this year's one, and when should that be as a formal resolution as part two, right? I'm just trying to tease out what the recommendations will be. So what I'm hearing, right, I think we should, in terms of the recommendation, we should be recommending that clause 8 of the terms of reference be removed from the terms of reference. And we are recommending to council that they consider the creation of a CE performance committee.
See employment.
Employment, thank you. So employment, okay, thank you. So that's one, okay. The next resolution then becomes, does this committee then we actually then continue and complete what was started actually only earlier this year in early March, and complete it and ready to hand over the mantle for 12 months' time? Because bearing in mind, this then has to go through a council meeting, then there's got to be potentially a committee selected, you need potentially an external advisor, and that then just delays the process.
Yeah, I think given last year, we for various reasons, we were behind the 8 ball with the following through on the process. I think it would be difficult to make a change when that process has already started. I think we would need to complete this in good faith with the CE and then make the change that goes forward from next year onwards.
Could I suggest that it would not be difficult? It's inappropriate and it brings risk.
Oh, yeah. I don't, I just want to explore.
About key.
Absolutely. I don't disagree.
No, it is what it is for now.
Yep, it is what it is for now.
Just Lawrence's point. We're talking about going forward.
Correct. Okay. Just making sure everyone is on the same page, right?
Otherwise, it's potentially changing the rules at half time.
That's
exactly. No. I would actually say during a injury break. Yes. Right. Okay. So on that note, in terms of procedure, do we actually want to set a date now? Right. So or do we leave that up?
I think it needs to go to council to adopt that resolution, because
we would be doing it.
I thought by default we were actually going to carry on and close set a date for
performance review, because that's our
okay. All right.
Yeah. You might need to have a discussion, Mr. Chairman, with the CE to ascertain.
Maybe to set a date now.
I've got my calendar right in front of me. Right.
Let's
pardon?
Get on and do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got my little spreadsheet in front of me. Right. So, unfortunately, council, because of like a lot of people thought the LTPs would well be done and dusted. I've booked a little excursion overseas, and then I've got a series of meetings. I could do, now this is not a normal council day, but I could do my first available date would be the 19th of September.
I have nothing on the 25th of September at this stage.
I have 2 conflicts on the 25th of September.
Oh, you do. Council doesn't.
Yep.
Or the 24th.
24th, could be a challenge.
Day after the council meeting.
I could do it. If it was early in the morning.
23rd.
23rd in the afternoon, 26th. I could do. 26th, I could.
That week you're away, Dale and Steve Lawrence.
No, 23rd.
I'm away from the 25th.
20. 23rd, 24th, 23rd, 26th, clear. 19th is clear.
19th.
I can't do the 19th.
I can't do the 19th.
Available on the 19th. It's not a Friday.
Sure. I'll be there.
I don't want to be kind of precious.
I think as long as I've got sufficient time.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to
in
get.
advance
Is that
and a month in advance.
a month in advance is sufficient? So how's everyone's diary looking for the 19th? I mean, it actually suits my travel arrangements. I'm actually that far from here the day before.
I can't make the 19th.
You can't make the 19th?
Who's present for this?
Normally it's,
Given the formal rules, because we're operating.
yeah,
Who has to actually be here for that?
Well, actually, no one technically has to be here. All we need is the majority of the committee. But so
we call Risk and Assurance Committee.
risk and assurance
Still has the responsibility.
but other councillors, as always, are welcome. Yep.
So in terms of the Risk and Assurance Committee, who have to be there.
Yep.
Is the 19th good?
19th. Marty? 19th? Okay, 19th at 9:30 here.
9:30.
All right. Great.
Like a plan.
Lock it in.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. Right. And maybe with the chair's permission, right, I may
Chair?
Sorry, no, you're the chair. Right?
You're another chair.
They're another chair. Well, there's all sorts of chairs, but anyway, sorry. I might do some work on a work plan and talk to you about that. So we can just informally talk about that at the meeting. I think that would be then kick that process off, but it's okay.
Okay.
So Robin, have you happy with the motions?
I can
Read them out.
the recommend to council that clause 8 of the terms of reference be removed and that council considers the creation of a CE employment committee.
Yep.
And that.
Does that need to have a from?
Yeah, it's a recommendation from the.
Yeah, but
From.
date?
No, I would actually. When's your next council meeting?
18th of September. I don't think so. I think you just start it after the process is complete.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
And that a date is for the performance review is set for Thursday, the 19th of September at 9:30.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Mayor Ron, seconded councillor Grace. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, carried. Thank you very much. Can I suggest we move into public excluded and then take a 5-minute break? Can I have a mover? We move.
May I just?
Oh, sure.
Can I clarify who's writing the terms of reference for this new committee? Is it me?
Turkey and Christmas.
Just, in terms of conflicts of interest, just want to put it out there. Are you expecting me to write these? I'm happy to. I'm happy to do that. I just want to clarify with council and the committee before I do that. And obviously you'll need to approve them, and I'm happy to do that. I just want it on the table that I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
If Dale's had some experience in Porirua and they had a committee of similar ilk.
Yeah, sure. We can copy
research out there from ZED and plenty of
that first. Early conversation, if we can hoover up some information, what other committees, what their TOs are, what their structure is, it helps give us a guide for our thinking.
Cool.
If we could get
in partnership.
I think it's probably. I think those who've had experience, but I haven't. Best set on that. I don't actually have a meeting.
Given that what we do here is unique, the bulk is the other way.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of best practice examples from other councils around what's working and what's.
Sure. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Right. Thank you. Can I have a move? We move into public excluded. Councillor Dale, seconded. Deputy Mayor Steve, did I see your hand go up? Right, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Right, let's adjourn for 5 minutes.